Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Turtle, chapter, turtle, chapter, turtle, chapter, turtle, chapter, turtle. Friday the 13th, the final chapter is a 1984 American slasher film directed by Joseph Zito, produced by Frank Mancuso Jr., and starring Kimberly Beck, Corey Feldman, Crispin Glover, and Peter Barton. It is the fourth installment in the Friday the 13th franchise. Picking up immediately after the events of Part Roman 3, the plot follows a presumed dead Jason Voorhees who escapes from the morgue and returns to Crystal Lake to continue his killing spree. The film marks the debut of the character Tommy Jarvis Feldman, who would make further appearances in two sequels and related media establishing him as Jason's archenemy. Much like Part Roman 3, the film was originally supposed to be the final installment in the series. Mancuso Jr. wanted to conclude the series as he felt nobody respected him for his producing work on the series regardless of how much the films earned at the box office, as well as wanting to work on other projects. Paramount Pictures supported the decision, as they were aware of the declining popularity of slasher films at the time of its release. As a result, the film was marketed as the final chapter to ensure it as such. Makeup artist Tom Savini, who worked on the first film, returned because he wanted to help kill off Jason, whom he helped create. The film was originally scheduled to be released in October, but was pushed up to April 13, 1984. Upon its theatrical release, the film grossed $33 million in the U.S. on a budget of $2.06 million, making it the fourth most attended of the Friday the 13th series, with approximately 9,815,000. Though the film received generally negative reviews from critics at the time of release, it has retrospectively come to be considered one of the best, if not the best, in the series. Despite being billed as the final film, its success prompted another sequel, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, 1 year later. Plot: the night after the events at Higgins Haven, police clean up the grounds and Jason Voorhees' body, believed to be dead, is taken to the morgue. At the hospital, Jason spontaneously revives and escapes from the cold storage, murdering the coroner Axel Burns with a hacksaw and gutting nurse Robbie Morgan with a scalpel. The following day, a group of teenagers drive to Crystal Lake for the weekend. The group consists of Paul, his girlfriend Sam, Virgin Sarah, her boyfriend Doug, awkward Jimmy, and jokester Ted. On the way, the group comes across Kamela Voorhees' tombstone and a hitchhiker, who is soon killed by Jason. The teens arrive and meet neighbors Trish Jarvis, her 12-year-old brother Tommy, and the family dog Gordon. While going for a walk the next day, the teens meet twin sisters Tina and Terry Moore and go skinny dipping with them. Trish and Tommy happen upon the scene, and Trish is invited to a party taking place that night. Afterwards, when their car breaks down, Trish and Tommy are helped out by a young man named Rob Deere. They take him to their house, where he meets their mother, and Tommy shows him several monster masks he made himself before Rob leaves to go camping. Later that night, the teens begin the party. A jealous Sam sees Tina flirting with Paul and leaves. She goes out to the lake where Jason impales her with a spear from under a raft. When Paul goes out to look for her, he is harpooned in the groin. Terry tries to leave the party early, but before she can get on her bike, Jason stabs her with a spear. Mrs. Jarvis arrives home and discovers the power outage. While searching for her children and Gordon, she is killed off-screen. Trish and Tommy soon arrive and realize their mother is missing. Trish goes to search for her and finds Rob's campsite. It is revealed that Rob is actually the brother of Jason's victim Sandra Deere from the second installment. Rob further explains to her that Jason is still alive and he came to Crystal Lake to avenge his sister's death. Worried for Tommy's safety, Trish and Rob return to the house. After sleeping with Tina, Jimmy goes downstairs to get a bottle of wine. Jason pins his hand with a corkscrew before striking him in the face with a meat cleaver. Tina looks out a window upstairs and finds that her sister's bike is still there. Jason then bursts through the window and throws her to her death, crashing on the car. While a stoned Ted watches stag films with a film projector, he gets too close to the projector screen and is stabbed in the head with a kitchen knife from the other side. Jason then goes upstairs where Doug and Sarah finish making love in the shower. After Sarah leaves, Jason kills Doug by crushing his head against the shower tile. When Sarah screams upon finding Doug's body, she tries to escape but gets a double-bit axe through her chest. Trish and Rob go next door to investigate and discover the teens' bodies. Gordon flees, and Rob is killed by Jason in the basement as Trish runs home. She and Tommy barricade the house, but Jason breaks in and chases them into Tommy's room. Trish lures Jason out of the house and escapes, then returns home and is devastated to learn that Tommy didn't run away. She senses Jason behind her and tries to fight him off with the machete but is overpowered. Tommy, having disguised himself to look like Jason as a child, distracts him long enough for Trish to hit him with the machete, but she merely whacks off his mask. As Trish stands horrified at Jason's deformed face, Tommy takes the machete and strikes it in the side of his skull, causing him to collapse to the floor and split his head upon impact. When Tommy notices that Jason's fingers are slightly moving, he continues to hack at his body screaming, "Die, die," while Trish repeatedly yells out his name. At the hospital, Trish is visited by Tommy. He rushes in, embraces her, and gives a disturbed look while staring into the camera. Cast. Production. When Friday the 13th Part Roman III was released, it was initially supposed to end the series as a trilogy, but there was no moniker to indicate it as such. In 1983, there were rumors that Paramount Pictures billed the fourth film as the final chapter as a result of them feeling embarrassed by their association with the series. Despite how Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel claimed this in their review of the film on At the Movies, Paramount Pictures was aware that the slasher genre had been declining in interest. However, the idea came from producer Frank Mancuso Jr., the son of Paramount CEO Frank Mancuso Sr., as he began to resent the series due to how he felt nobody respected him for working on Friday the 13th Part 2 as a production assistant and Part Roman 3 as producer, regardless of how much money the films earned. As a result of this and him wanting to work on different projects, he wanted to conclude the series by killing off Jason. Writing. The filmmakers wanted Joseph Zito, who had previously produced and directed The Prowler, to direct and write the screenplay for the film. He initially claimed that he was the writer, but he later accepted it when the contract offered him payment for directing and writing. Zito secretly used the extra salary to hire Barney Cohen to write the script. Their process entailed Zito taking one-hour phone calls every night with Phil Scuderi to discuss the film's screenplay and story. He then met Cohen in a New York apartment to use the ideas Scuderi had offered, which then they would turn into script pages sent that day to Scuderi in Boston to be discussed again over the phone. Cohen remained credited for writing the film, but he eventually got into trouble with the Writers Guild of America as a result. Previous Friday the 13th films generally favored young women being the final girl. This is the first film in the series to not only have two survivors instead of one, but one of them being a child. The filmmakers believe this aspect has never been done before in a slasher film, as well as them wanting to create characters that the audience don't want to see harmed or killed. By including the Jarvis family, a divorced mother, a teenage daughter, and a preteen son opposite the usual cast of teenagers, they could generate more drama and resonant tragedy, such the implication of Mrs. Jarvis killed outside by Jason, and thus remaining debatable how intentional the parallels are between Jason and Tommy. Tommy's interest in makeup effects served as an homage to Tom Savini. Casting. Kamela Moore initially auditioned for Samantha, but when the filmmakers discovered she had a twin sister, they were instead offered the roles of Tina and Terry. Amy Steele, who starred as heroine Ginny Field in Friday the 13th Part 2, co-starred with Peter Barton on the TV series The Powers of Matthew Starr. Barton was offered the role of Doug when the series was cancelled, but he was initially reluctant as he wanted no part in any horror film, especially after he disliked working on Hell Night. However, because Steele was involved in Part 2, she talked him into doing the film. Makeup artist Tom Savini, who had not returned for Part 2 and Part Roman 3, was invited by Zito to work on the film to help kill off Jason, who he helped create in the original film. Filming commenced in October 1983 to January 1984 in Topanga Canyon and Newhall, California. It was originally set to be released in October 1984, but Frank Mancuso Jr. pushed the release date to April 13, leaving them only 6 weeks to complete post-production. The only time Paramount helped with the film's production, they rented a house in Malibu for the filmmakers to stay and conduct editing sessions, with food brought to them by the studio. An alternative ending exists where the character of Trish discovers the body of Mrs. Jarvis in the bathtub. This exists as a DVD extra, but the original audio for the scene is lost. Music. The film's music was composed by Harry Manfredini, who composed the scores to all of the series' previous installments. On January 13, 2012, La La Land Records released a limited edition 6-CD box set containing Manfredini's scores from the first 6 entries of the film series. The release was sold out in less than 24 hours of availability. The song Love Is a Lie by Lion is featured in the film, but not on the soundtrack. Reception. Box office. Friday the 13th. The Final Chapter opened on Friday, April 13, 1984, on 1594 screens and grossed $11.01 million in its opening weekend, ranking number 1 at the box office. The film would ultimately take in $33 million at the U.S. box office, placing number 26 on the list of the year's top-grossing films. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter holds an approval rating of 19% based on 31 reviews, with an average rating of 4.2/10. The site's critics' consensus reads as lumberingly single-minded as its homicidal star. Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter adds another rote entry to an increasingly labored franchise. On Metacritic, it has a weighted average score of 33 out of 100, based on 7 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel berated the film on their show, with the former deeming it an immoral and reprehensible piece of trash. Scott Meslow summarized Ebert's criticism as calling it a cynical retread of the earlier films, noting that the film instead attempts to kill off the series while focusing more on characterization than gore. In a series retrospective, Kyle Anderson of Entertainment Weekly ranked it the best Friday the 13th film, complimenting both its narrative and kills.